You can't hire a paperboy now. You can't count on a rolled-up newspaper landing at the same spot every morning. You can't even hear that soft thud on the driveway anymore. What happened to the paperboy? The job didn't vanish overnight. It faded as the newspaper business stopped being able to pay for home delivery at scale. For decades, the paperboy was the last link in a huge chain. When that chain lost money and lost volume, the last link snapped first. You still remember it because it wasn't abstract. It was physical. It was scheduled. It had a sound. You wake up before the house really wakes up. You don't reach for a phone. You listen. The street is quiet in a specific way, like it's holding its breath, and you can hear small things, a distant engine, a sprinkler ticking, a screen door tapping once in the wind. And then you hear the delivery sound, a bicycle freewheel whir, or a car rolling slow, then the quick rustle of paper, then that flat slap, newspaper meeting concrete or grass. You step outside, and the air hits first. In winter, it feels sharp and dry. In humid weather, it feels heavy, almost sticky against your skin. Your feet find cold steps. Your hand finds the paper. It's heavier than it looks. Newsprint has that rough, fibrous feel, and the fold lines press into your fingers. If it came in a plastic sleeve, the sleeve squeaks when you grip it. If it's bare, a thick rubber band bites slightly as you pull it off, then snaps back into a tight loop. You bring it in and set it down. It lands with a dull thump on the table, and when you open it, the pages crackle and shift like dry leaves. The smell comes up right away. Ink, paper, and a faint, oily note that sticks to your fingertips. You turn a page and feel the slight drag of newsprint against skin. You fold it back to the section you want, making sharp creases that look clean for about 10 seconds. If you're the one delivering, the ritual starts earlier and colder. You pull up to a drop point in the dark. Headlights cut through mist or snow. Bundles sit stacked in uneven columns, strapped tight. Edges pale under the light. You lift your stack and feel the weight settle into your arms, awkward and solid. The paper edges scrape your jacket. A few loose inserts slide out, and you shove them back in. Your breath fogs the air as you sort, count, and separate. You drive slowly because the route is memory plus instinct. You watch for porch lights, for house numbers that vanish in shadow, for that one driveway that always has ice, for the dog that charges the fence. You stop, step out, and everything is small sounds. A car door clicks shut. Gravel grinds under shoes. The newspaper slides free. Your arm makes the same practiced motion again and again. Roll, aim, throw, listen for where it lands. You learn precision. You learn which porch needs the paper tucked behind a planter, and you learn which family hates it on the driveway. You learn which house wants it inside the storm door so it doesn't soak, and people respond without making a speech about it. A note appears once. Please put it on the chair. A porch light flips on when you're early. In some places, a payment envelope gets taped to the door at the end of the month, your name written just legible enough to make it official. That's a recognition moment most people forget they had. You didn't just receive news. You received proof that the morning had started. Then you step back and see the system behind the sensation. Newspaper delivery was a distribution network built around time. The product had to arrive early, before work, before school, before the day pulled people apart. The labor was often done by kids in earlier decades, and especially in walkable neighborhoods, but it shifted over time toward adults and car-based routes as suburbs stretched and routes got larger. In many areas, carriers were treated as independent contractors, handling delivery logistics in exchange for a per-paper rate. The physical spaces were plain and functional. A loading dock behind a newspaper building. A parking lot drop, where bundles appeared before dawn. A corner shop or depot, where stacks waited to be split into routes. The social rules were quiet. A missed paper meant a quick complaint. A wet paper meant a sharper complaint. A consistently good route meant holiday tips and small courtesies. Delivery was supposed to be invisible, until it wasn't. There were regional differences, too. Dense cities meant apartment lobbies, buzzers, doormen, stairwells, and bundled drops. Suburbs meant long driveways and cul-de-sacs. Rural areas meant distance and fuel, which made the economics break sooner. What this system needed to survive was scale, a lot of paying households close together, every day. In 1984, U.S. weekday newspaper circulation was about 63.34 million. That scale supported everything: printing, trucks, sorting, customer service, and the last mile to your door. By 2000, weekday circulation was still about 55.77 million, which meant the machine was still huge and still routine in many homes. That mass volume made delivery practical. A carrier could hit many houses in a tight loop. A paper could sell ads knowing it would land on thousands of kitchen tables in a predictable window. And the money didn't come only from the subscriber. In 2000, U.S. newspaper advertising revenue was about $48.67 billion, while circulation revenue was about $10.54 billion. That imbalance mattered because advertising helped subsidize everything expensive, like putting a physical object on a porch every morning. For a household, the subscription felt like a small recurring cost that paid back in routine value. Local news, sports, weather, coupons, listings, and that sense that you were caught up before the day began. For the business, the subscriber helped cover some costs, but ads made the system breathe. Then the Paperboy didn't disappear because kids suddenly changed. The Paperboy disappeared because the math changed. Then 3 things happened that changed everything. The Paperboy didn't disappear because people stopped caring about news. The deeper truth was that the newspaper stopped being the most efficient way to deliver information and local advertising at the same time. First, circulation fell, and falling circulation destroys delivery density. The decline wasn't one dramatic year. It was a long slope, then a steeper drop after the mid-2000s. By 2022, total U.S. daily circulation, print and digital combined, was estimated around 20.9 million, down from the tens of millions that supported the old route logic. What that meant on the ground was simple. Fewer subscribers on a street means more distance per delivered paper. More distance means more time, more fuel, and more labor cost per customer. A bike route becomes a car route. A kid route becomes an adult route. Or a neighborhood loop becomes a scattered territory. Second, the classifieds engine got gutted, and that took oxygen away from delivery. In 2000, print newspapers generated about 40% of their total advertising from classified ads. Jobs, apartments, used cars, garage sales, small text blocks that quietly paid for a lot of the newspaper's world. Craigslist launched in 1996 and expanded market by market. It offered most classifieds for free, searchable, and updatable in real time. It wasn't just cheaper. It was structurally better for the buyer. Research on Craigslist's entry estimated about $5.0 billion in savings to classified ad buyers during 2000 to 2007, in year $2,000. That savings is the same number as lost revenue from the newspaper side. By 2020, print classified advertising had dropped to about 15% of total advertising revenue. That's not a minor shift. That's a core pillar removed. Third, the broader ad market moved to targeting, and newspapers couldn't match the new deal. Print ads were one-size-fits-all. Digital ads became personal, trackable, and optimized. Online platforms could show different messages to different people and measure what worked. Advertisers followed that measurable efficiency. This didn't kill print in one blow. It weakened the revenue that used to subsidize print, while print still carried the expensive parts: paper, ink, presses, trucks, and delivery. By the late 2000s, the strain showed up in ways you could see, without knowing industry terms. The paper got thinner. Sections disappeared. Delivery times drifted later. Some days became no delivery days. Routes got combined. The carrier changed from someone you vaguely recognized to a driver you never saw clearly. The crisis moment wasn't one headline. It was the day the paper stopped arriving like a promise and started arriving like an inconvenience. Then the transition unfolded, gradual and then sudden. At first, old and new coexisted. You still got the paper, but you also checked a website. You still clipped coupons, but you also started using store apps. You still read sports in print, but you also refreshed scores on a screen. Publishers tried to adapt. They built websites. They experimented with paywalls. They pushed digital subscriptions. They cut newsroom staff and printing costs. They reduced print frequency because printing and delivery on low-revenue days stopped making sense. Customers adapted faster once the habit broke. And if a paper arrived late twice, you tried digital. If delivery got unreliable in rain or snow, you tried digital. If the paper raised prices while feeling thinner, you tried digital. And once you get used to news that updates all day, waiting for the morning bundle feels like waiting for yesterday to arrive. Some places held on longer. Small towns, older neighborhoods, and regions with strong local papers often kept delivery alive, sometimes with a single remaining carrier covering a wide area. But the overall direction was set by scale and revenue, not by preference alone. But it wasn't just economics. It was contact. What disappeared wasn't just a job. It was a repeated low-level relationship between homes and a person who moved through the neighborhood every day. You lost a kind of informal accountability, and if an older neighbor's paper piled up untouched, that was a signal. If a porch light stayed off for days, someone noticed. If a driveway wasn't shoveled, the carrier learned it before anyone else. You also lost a small training ground for real-world responsibility. You learned time pressure without a supervisor standing there. You learned how weather changes outcomes. You learned route memory, customer expectations, and the quiet logic of logistics. The last mile costs the most. And you lost an object that made news feel like a thing with weight and texture. A phone has no ink smell. A notification has no crackle. A feed has no folded corner that marks where you stopped reading. None of this means everything was better back then. A lot was gained. Digital news made access faster. It made breaking information immediate. And it made searching easier. It reduced the need to cut trees, print miles of paper, and drive routes that burn fuel every morning. Progress was probably inevitable, but the trade wasn't imaginary. The gain was speed and convenience. The loss was a small, human layer between you and daily life. This pattern has repeated across other parts of life, too. Services that were once local and personal became centralized and automated. Objects that once arrived became optional. Relationships that were once built through repeated small contact got replaced by interfaces and subscriptions. It doesn't require blame to notice it. It only requires memory. You can accept what replaced the Paperboy while still recognizing what the Paperboy quietly provided: routine, presence, and a small proof that you lived in a place where someone still knew the route. And you step outside again in your mind, and you can almost hear it. freewheel whir, paper rustle, that soft slap on the driveway. If you remember the ink smell on your hands or the rubber band snap, share what it was like in your town. That's the part only you know. If this brought back something you'd forgotten, liking helps more people find it. And subscribing is just a signal that you want more stories like this.